Hey everyone, it's Daniel with Petal Pickers, and I'm here today to take over the Ask a Flower Farmer live with the Gardener's Workshop Farm. And I'm taking over as a former student of the Gardener's Workshop's online courses. I've taken most of the courses, and I really do believe it's how I've become successful with being on my flower farmer journey. I also had no previous experience flower farming before I took Lisa's courses, and I really think that they've laid the foundation for me to get where I am today and just be successful at farming. I also really admire Lisa for focusing all of her time and energy on teaching anyone who wants to grow flowers and providing them the knowledge and tools and her life experience through the Gardener's Workshop Farm. So if you have not visited their website, go check it out. There's all kinds of growing resources. There's online courses you can take, and you can also order seeds of cut flowers and the tools that you need to start them from seed and grow them. And one thing that I really think is neat about Lisa is she is just really pioneering the social media space in the cut flower world. So she really makes herself available through stuff like this, Ask a Flower Farmer, where you can ask her questions each week, or one of us while she's taking a break. But also Lisa has a live shopping show every Friday. You can download the app for it in your app store on your phone or tablet. It's under the Gardener's Workshop Farm, and it is so much fun if you haven't been on there. You can order seeds and tools that she has. She has special discounts just for the live shopping show, so you have got to check it out. It's so much fun. And I'm going to give a little plug to my husband. So if you're into home decor, we also do a live shopping show just like Lisa at the Nested Fig. Wes is my husband and he runs that, but just wanted to give a quick shout out for that, and you can check that out. So I'm familiar with the live shopping experience through that. And Lisa just does the best job. You get to see the flowers physically in bloom on camera before you even order the seeds, so you really know like which varieties and which colors you want to choose. So do that. A little bit about me. I'm going to give you a quick intro because I hosted an Ask a Flower Farmer a few weeks ago, and you can go back on the Gardener's Workshop Farms feed and check that out. I have a much longer explanation because I was a little nervous when I was doing that one my first time. But check that out. I'll even show you around the workshop and our farm a little bit. So go back and watch that if you're interested. But again, I'm Daniel with Petal Pickers. We grow in Greenville, South Carolina, which if you're not familiar with that area, it's between Charlotte, North Carolina and Atlanta, Georgia. And so we're in growing zone 8A. And again, we're in South Carolina. We're growing on 8 acres for our cut flower field, but in production, we only have about 3 to 4 acres of flowers, which is still a lot to keep up with. To help us with that, we have currently 5 employees. 3 of them are full-time and 2 of them are part-time. And we had a summer intern this summer. She has gone back to school. We had another employee that recently had to move. So that's one thing in my experience. I always try to have like an extra employee at the farm because there's always enough to do on a farm, but sometimes you have people leave for various reasons, and so we're having to pick up from that. Let's see. This is our 6th growing season, so I've been growing flowers for a while now, and I hope I can provide you with some of my experience, who's still early on in their flower growing journey, but I have learned a lot. And so what I did yesterday is I posted on our Instagram over at Petal Pickers a question box. So I've already taken some questions that I'm going to start off this live with answering. But if you want to ask me a question and you're on here now, go to the bottom of your screen. There's a little bubble with a question mark in it. And you can click on that and type me a question, and I should be able to pull that up and answer it in just a minute. Last time, like I said, I gave a longer introduction and showed you around the farm, but this time I'm going to jump right into the questions. So let's start with that. I have a question from at Black Dog Blossoms, and they asked me some advice about efficiency on our farm. They're just starting out and they don't have any employees. And so I wrote down a couple things. Hopefully this will help some people out. I think it's very important when thinking about efficiency for the layout of your farm. So if you have things scattered all over, like if you have a workshop on one side of your property and then your flower field is on the other side of the property, you are gonna have to go back and forth, and that's not gonna be very efficient. So we have a workshop, and that's where we have our grow room inside, and we have all of our coolers inside. We're building a propagation greenhouse directly behind that workshop. And my idea of that is to help increase our efficiency. So we're not moving our soil block trays or our plug trays all around the building. We can keep like soil in one spot, and you really have dedicated spaces to create a faster workflow. And let's see, if you don't have a workshop and you're starting soil block trays inside your home, maybe see if you have a spot like in your garage that you could just keep things more efficient. If you have a spare bedroom that you're starting your soil blocks in, maybe you don't want to put that upstairs and have to carry those trays up and downstairs. If you can have it all in your garage, that just makes things more efficient. And of course, this all depends on your growing conditions. If you get too cold, a garage may not be suitable for you. Another thing about efficiency, so out in the field, and listen, y'all, I've made every mistake. I think I'm a great person to talk about this because I'm living through experience. But one of the things you definitely want to do is standardize the length of your rows that you're growing in. So even if you're growing in raised beds, make sure all your raised beds are the same length and the same width, and the same thing for your rows out in the field. Now, I have different areas. We're on a larger production. So like I have some rows for my dahlias that are like 200 and probably 50 feet long. And then I have other rows of my dahlias that are 70 feet long. But in my annual field, I've really tried to standardize our rows to be about 100 feet long. And so that means that anytime we have frost cloth or plastic that we want to cover our crops with, all the pieces are cut to the exact same size, and we can just pull them at the beginning of the season, use them, and then put them back, and we don't have to mark them all different row sizes. I've had different size rows in the past, and to be honest, all of that frost cloth over the years has just gotten thrown away because we can never keep up with how long it is. Also, another tip, and this is another one that we're learning, is when you're starting off flower farming, you are going to want to grow every variety of flower possible that there is. You're going to try it all. And the best advice is to not do that, but realistically, you're going to do it anyways. So grow all the different flowers that your heart desires, but in very small quantities. If you have a personal garden off to the side that you can plant those in to enjoy and learn about them or trial new varieties, do that, where you're not always stressing about having to keep up or sell those flowers. And then out in your field where your production is, you want to have more volume of less varieties of flowers. So over the last 6 years, I've taken certain crops, like one time I grew 7 different varieties of bachelor buttons in spring. And that's just way too many to predict for your florist, or even if you're just trying to predict what you're gonna have available for your bouquets at market. And you're gonna wanna pick like 1 or 2 and just go with that. Plant more in volume of those fewer varieties. Same with Gumfrina. I've grown all different varieties of Gumfrina. One time I had like 5 different colors of it. And now this year I've decided to only grow white Gumfrina. So that's all that I have to focus on. And it just takes a little bit off your plate. Okay, also as I've become more experienced with this being our 6th year, and also the number of flower growers is really increasing. So when I started growing in our area, I think we only had 9. I think I was number 9, the 9th flower farmer in the entire upstate of South Carolina. And now I think we have 30. So there's a lot more people coming on board, and the newer flower farmers are going to want to start off with some of the easier or cheaper to get crops, like stuff you can grow from seed, such as zinnias or cosmos. And so what I'm doing, and my advice to you, is if you're newer, maybe grow those because you need to save your money and put that into other resources on your farm up front as you're building your operation. So maybe you do want to start growing the zinnias and cosmos, but then just to differentiate yourself from the other farmers as you get more experience, maybe you want to stop growing so much of those and start growing some more flower crops that just take more experience. So now, like in the 6th year going, next year will be our 7th, and I'm already planning out that season. I'm choosing to focus more on like ranunculus and lisianthus and dahlias and just some of the crops that I know I can grow really well and in high volume. And like zinnias, you just have to cut so much of them. They're like, it's a great flower to grow because you do get an abundance of flowers, but also with us trying to keep up with harvest, I've decided to grow less zinnias this year than I ever have before. So I hope that helps. I'll try to go faster on the questions. The next one is Killer Blooms, and they asked 2 to 3 best things to plant in a heated hoop house for a first-year grower. So I actually don't have any heated hoop houses, but I do have 10 unheated hoop houses. And what I have found has been a great thing to grow in there are all of our higher dollar crops. So you want to put stuff in your tunnels that you're going to get the most money for, and also if they need protection from the rain. So that's what we use our tunnels on our farm mainly for. So the stuff that's higher dollar that you can get more money per stem for would be ranunculus, delphinium, lisianthus, poppies, and there's many more things. That's just, you asked for 2 or 3. I gave you 4 examples, but poppies really need to be undercover if you're growing the higher dollar varieties like the hummingbird or the Italian poppies. And like we make sure to grow our white lisianthus under our tunnel because the rain can damage the blooms if you're trying to leave the plants out there to open up multiple blooms on a single stem. You can harvest them earlier, and I know that Lisa does that. And so there's ways around it. You don't need a high tunnel to grow cut flowers professionally, but they do have their benefits if you decide to get into that game. So start with the higher dollar crops. And that's really just gonna make the most sense. And hopefully that helps. Okay, my husband, Wesley at Farm Shenanigans, sent me a couple questions, so I'm gonna answer those real quick. I thought they were good, and he was just trying to think of questions that y'all might want to hear. His first question is, what crop did you fail at growing and what went wrong? Okay, so I have failed at growing almost all my crops at some point, even zinnias. I've gotten zinnia meltdown when we had really wet springs and I had the plants out there. And that's a nasty fungus type disease. I don't really know what causes it, but I do find I only get zinnia meltdown if the ground just stays really wet while the zinnias are growing. But let's see, some of the crops I failed at growing were poppies, delphinium, lupine, and ranunculus. And I grouped those all together because I had them out in the open field and we had a really wet winter and they weren't under plastic. They were just out in the open, and all 4 of those crops are prone to rot if their roots stay too wet during the growing season. So for us, we were fall planting all this stuff, and we get most of our rain in the winter. We also have clay soil, which holds a lot of moisture. And again, those were poppies, delphinium, lupine, and ranunculus. And I just had entire rows of them die to root rot. So that has happened. Also, I've grown tulip varieties. It took me a couple years of growing tulips before I really figured it out. But we're in the South, so they don't naturally get all the cooling that they need just by planting them in the fall and going through winter for them to bloom nice and tall in the spring. So I didn't realize you could order pre-chilled bulbs from the wholesale suppliers. And once I figured that out, that kind of solved my problem. But I've had a couple thousand. Now, when I first started, I wasn't growing that many tulips like I am now. And then when I figured out how to grow them successfully, I really upped the quantity of tulips that we plant. But yeah, I've had varieties just grow like or bloom 2 inches tall out of the ground. It happens. It's kind of like a rite of passage of learning how to grow tulips. But if you do your research or just start small is the best advice I can recommend when you're purchasing expensive products or bulbs or corms like tulips. Lisianthus is another crop that I love, and we grow a lot of it. So for next year, I've ordered 10,000 Lisianthus plugs, and I've also ordered some seeds just to trial growing Lisianthus from seed for fun. But I'm not planning on those in our crop plans or production. I'm not planning on them to be successful because I know I'm going to have a lot of issues, but if they are, it's just going to be a bonus. But in the past, I've planted rows and rows of Lisianthus plugs, which are also an expensive thing to invest your money in, but also worth it if you keep the rows weeded. So that was my problem with those. Lisianthus takes a long time to grow. And then once it starts warming up in the summer, it seems like it grows a couple inches overnight. But we plant ours either anytime from fall until like March. We can plant Lisianthus and it get tall enough to be a successful crop. But if you do not stay on top of weeding, the weeds will just overtake all of that. And then sometimes you're ripping out like larger established weeds and you're just pulling the plugs out of the ground, and then you put them back in and they don't do well because you dug them up after being planted for a month. So Lisianthus is another thing that we really have to keep an eye on. And then also sometimes we have a dry spring, so we may plant our Lisianthus plugs and then not keep them watered enough. And that's another issue where I've just had them die out because they weren't getting enough water, and I thought it wasn't really that warm outside that they would be fine. So stuff happens. Again, I've learned a lot through experience, and when you're trying a new crop, you just have to, don't put all your eggs in one basket until you really feel comfortable learning how to grow it. So what I do is I take the online courses provided by the Gardener's Workshop Farm, and especially the expensive crops. I've taken Dave's bulb course, or it's bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more. And so when I wanted to invest money in like ranunculus and lilies, we trialed those this year. I did not go all out on lilies this year, but I've ordered more for next. And to be honest, they are pretty easy. So you may want to try those out, but just start small. Okay, next question. What do you no longer grow and why? So there's a couple things. Again, we are trying to focus and narrow down our crops that we actually grow for production on our farm. So I started growing everything. Now we're in year 6. We're trying to narrow that selection down. So I no longer grow Sorrent. Is a fun flower foliage plant to grow, and it's beautiful. I really enjoyed growing it too. So if you want to put some in your garden, or if you don't have a lot of money, it's a relatively cheap foliage to grow for early spring. But for me, it just didn't hold up very well out of water, and we sell a lot of our products to event florists who are doing weddings, and they were trying to use the foliage out of water, and then it'd be a warm spring day, and they just kind of start to wilt. So we've cut Sorrent. Okay, I'm back. I had a phone call. Sorry about that. 2 other things that I don't grow anymore are calendula and nicotiana, and those stems are just really sticky. I would maybe grow nicotiana, which is tobacco plant or tobacco flower. I would grow that again. I did like it if I was going to add stuff back into production. But again, we're trying to narrow. So I've cut those things out. We no longer grow single stem Gumfrina, so you can get that in the red, I think. Strawberry Fields is a variety, and then there's a Carmine one that's hot pink, and we don't grow that variety either because when you are harvesting Gumfrina, especially if you have it in netting, we don't put it in netting anymore, but we used to, and it would take forever to harvest it. So that's the sole reason that we don't grow that. It just took way too long for employees to harvest those crops. Also, bachelor buttons is another one. And it's one of the earliest flowers you can get to bloom on your farm. And I think I would say if you're going for markets, like a farmer's market, definitely you probably do want to have a little patch of bachelor buttons. But I was growing like a 70-foot row of them, and we never cut all the flowers in that row. So I've decided to move on from bachelor buttons because it's just a lot to keep up with harvesting. And a couple things that we've just learned over time. I've thrown money at perennials and stuff that don't grow well in our climate. And so agapanthus for us, we have clay soil and it does not like that at all. So we don't grow agapanthus anymore. Lady's mantle is another one. I think we may get a little too warm for it. And astrantia is another crop that we're just too hot for. It does not grow well in our climate at all. All right, another question. At Homestead Blooms, what type of tunnels do you have? I'm on a budget. So I was on a budget when I decided to get all of our high tunnels. We have 10 now, and I got them all from Farmer's Friend, and they're in Tennessee. They just they produce a good tunnel. It's probably not the strongest one that's on the market. I kind of look at their tunnels like, if I don't know exactly where I want this to be forever, the Farmer's Friend tunnel is great because you can move it around on your farm relatively easy. But I've had a couple of those tunnels up for 4 years now, and I've had no problems with them. We're not super windy in our climate. I think if you're like in the plains and you regularly get like 60 to 70 mile an hour winds come through with cold fronts, it might not be the one for you. But in our climate, we don't get too cold during winter, and we're kind of protected from the Appalachian Mountains from all the crazy windstorms. So I cannot recommend Farmer's Friend tunnels enough. They have worked great. And so our first 5 we got were the regular Caterpillar tunnels. And then the next round, they've started making new types of tunnels. And so the second round, we upgraded to the Gothic tunnels because they're supposed to shed snow a little bit better. And snow's not a huge problem for us, but when we do get snow in the winter, it's a heavy, wet snow. And I have seen it snow on our tunnels, and the Gothic ones just shed the snow right off. And I personally just like it because they're a little bit taller. It feels a little bit bigger when you're in there planting and cutting flowers. Okay, another question from Lori Marlene. And she wants to know how to grow anemones. I love anemones, and I grow them every year. Again, I'm in zone 8A, so if you're in a colder zone, you may want to plant them a little bit later than I do, but I can plant anemones starting like October 1st all the way through March, again, anytime in there. And in fact, I plant them at multiple times. So the ones that I plant in October, they're going to start blooming like right after Christmas. So that's going to be one of the first flowers we have on the farm. The problem for us is we don't have a lot of other stuff blooming at that time. So I usually like to wait and plant a little bit later. And I think this year we even planted in like December or January. And those were the flowers that were blooming in April and May during wedding season for us. So I felt like I sold a lot more anemones by holding off and planting them a little bit later. But we just soak the corms for 8 hours in water, and then we plant them a couple inches below the soil. We plant the corms 6 inches apart from one another, and they do great for us. So they do so well. I've grown them in tunnels and out in the open field. And if you're growing them out in the field, if you can kind of rig something with a plastic covering on top of them, that would just help if you get a lot of rain during your winter to help keep the corms from rotting. But I do feel anemones are a lot tougher than ranunculus, and I've grown them in raised beds and they've done great. So all about some anemones, give them a shot. Another question I have is from at Famous Amos, and they wanted me to recommend the 5 best or easiest cool flowers to start for a good variety and for bouquets. And so I wrote down 5 that I highly recommend. The trouble with only growing 5 is by planting different varieties, they're gonna bloom a little bit off from one another. So it's a little unlikely that all 5 are gonna be blooming at the same time for you. So what you may want to do is take these 5 varieties that I'm about to tell you and just stagger your planting out. So maybe plant some as a fall planting, and then plant another round of the same stuff in early spring. And then hopefully that'll kind of cross over with each other and you'll be able to make beautiful bouquets. But especially for just starting off and just for 5, and you did ask me for the easiest, I would recommend bachelor buttons. That's going to be the easiest cool flower to grow. Buplurum is a filler, and so it's like greenery to include in your bouquet, so it's not just all flowers. I love snapdragons, and I would definitely recommend growing those. Also Sweet William Dianthus, that one is almost indestructible. So I love the Amazon series. We grow the neon cherry and neon purple, and they do great for us, and they really are striking in a bouquet. So you're going to get a lot of color from the Sweet William Dianthus. And also Status is another flower. It's like a filler flower, but it does great. We can fall plant it and plant it again in early spring, and it is a flower that you can also dry. So if you're getting into dried flowers, look into Status. All right, I hope that helps. I have another question at J Nicholson 24. How did you choose your farm location, and what's some information that you should be looking for? This is another one through experience where I probably picked the worst farm location. So Wes and I were looking for new property. We were living in town near downtown, and he wanted to move out to the country so he could have some animals. And so we looked at our farm and we bought it because of the house. So that's not really what you want to do if your goal is to flower farm. So don't do as I say, not as I do. We have like bright orange clay. The whole property is sloped on 2 sides. It slopes to a spring running through the center. And we've had to put so much like tens of thousands of dollars worth of compost to get everything to grow well. And it's in a good spot, and it really doesn't take as much as I thought. We've had to put down lime. We've put down organic fertilizers like chicken byproducts and stuff like that, and then a lot of food waste compost. And so it's all worked out. You can grow flowers on bad land, but it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of extra money, and some other inputs. So things that I would look for if I could do it all again would be to grow on flat land. Now, when it's flat, you also want to make sure that it drains. So you don't want a piece of land that looks flat and then it's just going to have like a pond of water if it rains a lot, where in the area that you're wanting to grow flowers. And so make sure it's a well-draining location. You want to keep away from rivers, in my experience. There may be beneficial nutrients in the soil due to that. I'm not sure, but I personally know a couple flower farms that have farmed on a piece of land right next to a river, and it's flooded, and it's not a good idea. So especially with climate change and all the heavy rains, the flash flooding that's going on in the last couple weeks, I would stay away from something like that, even though it's beautiful and picturesque. You want good soil, so you'll probably know that if you're in certain parts of the country. If you're up in the Midwest, you may just naturally have really healthy soil. And then in the South, like Georgia, South Carolina, it depends on where you are, but you may not have the best soil, and you may really need to put in a lot of investment on amendments to get it to where it needs to be. You want full sun for growing flowers, so that would be something that I would look for in buying a piece of property. And does it already include a workspace? So for our farm, we had a 3,000 square foot workshop. It needed a lot of repairs, but the building was there, and we were able to start like hiring employees and stuff day one and get them out of the sun in the afternoon and keep working. So that's been a bonus for sure. Are you close to the city? Do you have a lot of traffic? This is going to help determine the avenues of sales that you go through. Do you want to only sell at a farmer's market? You could probably be a little further out, and then you just know you're going to have to drive all your flowers into the city to your farmer's market each weekend, but that's only one trip. But if you're wanting to deliver to florist or event florist in town, you're going to want to be a little bit closer so that when you schedule out your route, you're not spending all day just delivering to those people. If you want people to come to your farm, I know flower farmers that are growing in the middle of nowhere, and they have to get creative with their sales outlets because there's just not anyone around them. The next people that live maybe another farm that's a couple hundred acres down the road. So we are pretty close to our city. So our city's growing, and actually we thought we moved to the country, and the city is just kind of knocking on our doors at this point. So we wish we would have moved farther out, but we're 12 miles from downtown Greenville and Main Street, and so it's pretty convenient for us to get around town and to sell in the city. And another thing is, does the property have a high water table? That's something that came to mind. A lot of people I've heard are putting in wells, and they're only getting a little bit of water coming up, and they don't have a lot of water pressure. So I don't know how you would check for that when you're purchasing the property, but it's something you could ask the realtor. And we're just blessed. We have a high water table on our farm. We have springs popping up everywhere, and so we don't have that issue. And it's been really nice if it doesn't rain for 30 or 60 days like we've had this summer, that we have access to be able to irrigate our crops through the well that we put in on the farm. All right, another question, Linda 2878 Robinson. When is your time that you start and end the subscription service? So great question. We offer a subscription service, and we ship bouquets nationwide directly from our farm. And we have used an app that we integrated with our website that makes everything pretty seamless. So we start our subscription service in March when our tulips start to bloom, and it goes all the way through every week. You can order flowers from us until early October, and that's when we end with our dahlias. And then that's it for the season for our subscriptions until the tulips start to bloom the next spring, around February or March. But that third-party app allows for customers to just go to our website. You could start today if you want a flower subscription. Head over to petalpickers.com, and you can just click. You can purchase a subscription. That'll be the one price per shipment. So for this week, it's going to charge you $79. And then if you go a couple weeks and you're like, that was fun, but I don't want to keep doing this forever, you can go to our website, log into your account, and you can pause, skip, or cancel your subscriptions at any time. So even if you're just going on vacation for a week, you can go log on to our website and you can hit skip. And so we've tried to make the subscription service a little bit different than other flower farms that I've seen. They both have their benefits, so it's however you want to do it. But for us, we just wanted it to be really flexible, because it becomes a lot when customers are emailing you and ask, can you skip this week? Can you start it back another week? I'm going on vacation. I'll be out of town this summer. I don't have a lot of money this week, whatever the reason is. And so just to automate things in general has really helped our farm be a little bit more successful. All right, I have one last question written down, and then I'll get to your questions here. So again, if you want to ask me a question, you can go down to the little bubble at the bottom of the live here with a question mark in it and type it there. I see I have questions, so I need to speed it up. Fields of Grace Flower Farm. I did not write down the question, but I think if I remember, it was what is our favorite outlets of sales or revenue for our farm? And I didn't want to just say like which is my favorite, because I don't know if there is a favorite. I have some that I like more than others, but I'll just tell you what our sales outlets are for Petal Pickers. So we cast a wide net when we first started, and honestly, that's caused me a lot of headaches over time, a lot of extra work keeping up with, a lot of stress. But that's just because we were building our business from scratch. And so you're really going to have that no matter what when you're starting a new business. But it definitely is easier if you choose your lane and stay in that lane. It's going to be a lot less office keeping and stuff, managing things from that aspect. So we sell to Florist. This is your standard florist that you would walk into a brick and mortar store and purchase a vase of flowers. So the good thing about them is that they're consistent in buying almost every single week during your season. But Florist, in my florist that I sell to, usually place smaller orders compared to the event florist that we sell to, which is our second category. So they have a lot larger orders. I've had orders that are over $1,000 for a single order, but they don't have a lot of events during the middle of the summer in our area. We're very hot during the summer. So I sell a lot to them in spring. I sell a lot to them in fall, but they're really not there buying my flowers in the middle of the summer. So that's like a positive and a negative for event designers. Retail and subscriptions. Again, I just mentioned this. There's a lot of time spent on responding to emails. We also have issues with FedEx delaying boxes, and we have to figure all that out and make sure the customer's still happy. And I get emails about, hey, what's going to be included in our boxes this week and stuff. And I love that everyone's excited, but it's just another task that comes to my plate that we have to take care of. And so if you go into retail or sell direct to consumer, it'd be very beneficial to you to hire for your team someone that can handle that for you. And I'm working on that, but I still answer a lot of those emails myself right now. We also sell to wholesalers. So this is something that in our area, we don't have a lot of established larger flower farms. And so the wholesalers really haven't had people to work on that relationship with until now. And now we have a lot of smaller growers, but still they can't fulfill the needs of a wholesaler. So I'm trying to work with ours. I've sold through our wholesalers some, but really you have to give them a discount. And so for it to be beneficial to you, the wholesaler needs to be ordering from you in a larger quantity of flowers. And for me, I just haven't seen that. I've had my wholesaler call me up and want to order 3 bunches of white dahlias, and I've just told them no, because I don't want to discount them and sell those flowers to them when I can sell them to someone else who's asking for them for more money. So I'm working through the wholesalers and trying to get them on board, but ours locally in our area just don't understand that there's not large flower farms for them to buy from. So really, for me to sell to them, I would need to know in advance so that I could grow that product for them. We also sell fall bulbs, and we do a fall bulb sale every year where we sell tulips, anemones, ranunculus, and other goodies. And that's been really successful for us on our farm. And what I've seen with us being on Instagram and interacting with our customers is people get so excited to follow us along on our journey and see what we're growing our farm. And then for them to be able to purchase the same products from us to help support us, but then also to grow them at their own home or garden is a lot of fun. And they just get so excited. And I love it when people send me pictures of bulbs they've purchased from us and they're blooming in their yard. That's a lot of fun. So we love our fall bulb sale, and we also sell dahlia tubers in the fall and spring as well. Okay, let's see if I can answer some questions here. All right, if I click that. Okay, from Sisters in the Garden, first year flower farming, looking for fertilizer in bulk for her field. Any suggestions on where to purchase? A company's coming to mind. I think it's like Seven Springs, maybe. Google that, and that's somewhere local to me. You're going to want to buy your fertilizers and stuff somewhere that's regional or local to your farm. I think the one I'm mentioning is in North Carolina. So if you're not near this area, you're going to want to find your own. They just happen to sell a lot of organic amendments, which I like. There's also national companies that you can order your fertilizers and potting soils and stuff from. I think there's out of maybe Ohio or Pennsylvania. You have Nolts is a company that you want to look into, and Yoder's maybe. They're Amish companies, but I start with Nolts, and they offer a lot of that, and they ship nationwide on pallets. But if you're further away, you're going to want to make sure your pallet is filled because it's going to be pretty expensive for them to ship it to you. Also, BWI, if you've heard of them, or Southern Ag is another one that's close to us. They're going to have more of your synthetic chemicals. Or your potting soil, your sterile potting soils. So search BWI or Southern Ag and see if you have a location somewhere near you that you can pick up. But those are my suggestions for that. Okay. Let's answer another question. How did you decide on the name Petal Pickers, and what were other names that you chose from? I don't know. We sat down, me and my husband, and powwowed and just wrote stuff down. I think Southern Fields was going to be my first idea. And then there was a lavender farm like 20 minutes away from us that had a very similar name. So, I nixed that one, and I just went around asking people. We settled on Petal Pickers. I thought, is it a tongue twister? And it kind of is, but we felt like, it's okay. It's a little catchy, and we just liked it. I wanted something a little more commercial, and that's why I went with that versus like a personalized farm name that related to like a family name or anything like that. And because I just saw that, for our business. But we went online and Google searched Petal Pickers, and there was nothing. And there, the Instagram handle was available and all the social media stuff. There was one little florist shop in Texas called something along the lines like Petal Pickers Florist or Flower Shop, but they didn't have any social media. They barely had a website, and I could just tell who it was. I was not going to be infringing on their business by naming my farm that. So I hope that answers your question. It's a hard thing coming up with a farm name because it can be so personal, and it's not necessarily forever, but you don't want to have to go back and change all your marketing once you start to grow your business. Okay, next question from Room for Flowers. Can you grow snaps in the summer, and if so, what variety? I choose to not grow snapdragons because we are in South Carolina in the summer. I grow them, I fall plant them and early spring plant them, and I do grow lots of snapdragons, but I grow them for spring and not for summer. I think you can grow Potomac and maybe Opus. I'm trying to think. You want varieties. So snapdragons are listed in like 4 groups. Group 1, 2, 3, 4. And the 1 and 2s bloom earlier in the season, and the group 3s and 4s bloom later, and those are better. The 3 and 4s are better to grow during summer. So that's what you want to look into. And if anything's a 3 or 4, it's probably going to do well growing in the summer for you. All right. Last time I had trouble answering these questions. So far it's going good. Let's answer another one. Okay, which avenue would you recommend is the most lucrative for a side hustle? So I guess this is still relating to flower farming because there's many things you can do. I don't really know what's the most lucrative. It's going to end up being just depending on what your talents and what your skills are. Social media has been great for me. and I don't utilize it the best. I could definitely improve a lot. I need to start building up my team so that we can do that more. But you can make money on other things. So like right now, social media, I make a little bit of money from posting reels and them getting a lot of views and likes. And so that's a side income. I make a couple $100 extra a month. And if I posted a lot more, I could probably make more money. But social media and having a good website are definitely great ways to make a little extra money if you start working with other brands. As an influencer, if you really want to get into that game, you can do that as well. I've had people reach out to me to send me gardening products and stuff, and honestly, I just haven't chosen to do any of that, but there's definitely options for you to make more money. YouTube is something that I have not really gotten into, but you can make a lot of money on YouTube by having ads on your page. And the more views that you get on your videos, you can get some side money from that. You can do like we do bulb sales where we're ordering in bulbs and then reselling them to home gardeners. You can sell seeds. You can offer workshops on your farm that can make a lot of money. And if you're talking about lucrative, I would say you can make a lot of money doing workshops and farm tours on your farm because you're not having to purchase in other products and stuff to make that money. You're just having to use your time, which I do value my time. So we would probably charge a lot for that, but I haven't gotten into any workshops or stuff on our farm. If you want to get into weddings, that is a great way to make the most money per stem of flower on your farm. Lisa has amazing online courses about that with Jenny Love that you should check into. I personally want nothing to do with weddings. I'm not that type of person that can listen to someone change their mind 10 times over or get so emotionally attached to certain flowers that I may not be able to provide them for a wedding. And I can't listen to that all day. I want to be out in the fields growing flowers and harvesting larger scale production. And that's just what best suits me. If you are skilled at really holding people's hands and offering them an amazing experience on their wedding day, making it really special for them, then maybe you should look into that and it would be a great avenue for you. All right, next question. Answering that same question one more time. Market stands would be great. I know a lot of people are opening farm stands where people can just buy bouquets from their farm. We don't have that yet, but we are looking at adding a farm stand to our farm and then maybe opening it up for farm days in the future. So just whatever. All that takes a lot of people. If you have family around you that can help, there's a lot of inputs to make this stuff happen, but whatever fits your scenario best. Okay, our hoop houses that we use again are Farmer's Friend LLC. If you Google that, they will come right up. They have an amazing website and make it so easy to order a high tunnel from. Did you have a good source for compost? I'm having a tough time. This is from Julie Garden Diary. And again, I touched on this with our compost. What we did first is we just happened to have a local... All right. Hopefully that reconnected. My internet went out for a second. Food waste compost through Atlas Organics. And we loved working with them until the pandemic happened and they switched their production or their sales avenue to home gardeners and garden clubs in our area, and they sold out of their compost. They could not make it fast enough to the point that it was like still hot when we were trying to get it shipped to our farm, and they would be telling us like, you need to let this compost sit for a few months. And so then we reached out and we found a chicken farmer like 2 to 3 hours away from our farm, and he would deliver in a dump truck this amazing compost. So that reminds me, I need to give him a call because I need a little bit on our farm too. But your compost is going to be very local to you more than getting stuff shipped on pallets, because you're going to need it to be delivered by a dump truck, and people are only going to be willing to drive a dump truck so far. Okay. Let's see if there's more question. How do you make money from Reels? From Stacy Thompson. I get a little thing on my Instagram that just pops up and talks about bonuses from Reels. So then I had to connect my PayPal account to Instagram. This may depend on how you set your Instagram account up. So mine is set up as a creator account, and that may have something to do with that. I'm not the expert. I feel like social media is evolving so fast, it's even hard for me to keep up. And I think I'm still pretty young. I'm 36. And sometimes it makes me feel old, but it's just an evolution. And I really admire Lisa is like the queen of social media. So when she pops on here, maybe she can answer questions like that. But she also has an amazing team that takes care of a lot of that for her. So let's go. Here's another question. When delivering to Florist, do you suggest charging a delivery fee? Large suppliers charge freight, so it seems we should be able to charge a delivery fee. I love this question. Yes, absolutely charge a delivery fee. I've increased my delivery fee every year that I've been in business. I saw the other flower farmers around me were charging like $5 or $10 initially, and then I just felt like when I was delivering 20 minutes away, it was absolute for a minimum order. It was absolutely not worth it for a $10 delivery fee. So I've increased mine to 15 to 20. If it's a larger event and someone's like really begging me, like I really need your flowers, but we're an hour and a half away. If the order's large enough, I will deliver it for them, but it's not the same $15 to $20 fee that I'm charging really close to my farm for delivery. It may be $100 or $200. It depends. Like, you have to work that out with your florist and just try to, understand the size of your florist, the size of their event that they're putting on, and if they have room in their budget for that. If it's a really small florist, they're not going to pay that much for you to deliver. But if it's someone, I've sold flowers to someone who had a $385,000 wedding, and that was for the whole wedding. But there was a lot of money for me to charge a delivery fee on that budget. And a lot of times you aren't going to know that. I just happened to find that information out because I knew it was such a big wedding. But you should be fluid on like what you're charging depending on the situation. This is a different answer to your question, but we also put in place a minimum order. So if someone is going to buy wholesale from us, our minimum order is $150. And to me, that's still not enough, but I have gotten pushback from some of the smaller event florists. So you just have to figure out what works for you. If someone wants my products delivered, I not only charge them a delivery fee, but I up their minimum order. So for me to deliver to someone, even local, their minimum wholesale order has to be $200, and then I'm charging them like $20 on top of that for delivery. And that's just what I feel is fair for me to spend my time or to pay one of our employees time to make that delivery on our behalf. So I hope that helps. Really throwing some numbers out there. Sometimes I just think it helps to explain the different scenarios. And we're all different. So if your florists aren't willing to pay something, you may have to come down on the price. Okay. When planting cool flowers in an unheated greenhouse, how often do you water? So for us during the winter, we're not going to water that much at all. The soil really has to get bone dry, or we have to notice wilting on the plants, because we can't water our crops in an unheated hoop house if it's going to be cold that night or the next day. That really sets up botrytis, is a disease that it's caused over winter. And when you're planting stuff in a hoop house, you don't get as much natural airflow to dry everything out, especially when the weather's cold. So during the winter, I'm watering like once a month with drip tape. If I notice it needs a little more water, then maybe every 2 to 3 weeks. I'm checking it every week. So but I end up not really, they don't need water except for like once a month. As the season warms up, which we have ranunculus planted during winter, it doesn't need a lot of water. And then we have the ranunculus blooming in like March, April, May. And as the temperatures warm into the 70s, we have to start watering a lot more. So during the height of summer, like right now, we are watering our Lysianthus. It's just on a timer and it's running every single day. So it depends on how long you're running it, how much water, all of that. But just when it's hot, they need a lot more water. All right. What flowers? Okay, what flowers do you mainly grow? I think I've talked a lot about this. You're growing for market, and I personally do not sell at a farmer's market. So your focus needs to be on who the end user is for your products. So for me, we are shipping flowers nationwide. We all are also selling locally. So that has created kind of different products that I need to grow. So for shipping, not all flowers ship well. So like I don't grow bachelor buttons. They're probably not going to ship that great. I try not to ship zinnias unless I think it is like a very firm, a smaller head, double flowered variety that will still ship well or decent. So we don't grow a lot of zinnias because of shipping. So we have really focused in on shipping stuff that ships well, like tulips, ranunculus, Lysianthus, sunflowers, and we're even going to do dahlias this fall. But instead of growing the larger decorative ones or cafe au laits, those don't ship well. We have focused our business on growing more of the smaller ball dahlias, and those seem to ship pretty well. So our customers just love dahlias so much, they keep asking us for it. So we are doing that this year. But for a market setting, there's a lot of filler flowers that look great. The number one is sunflowers for a farmer's market. And then I love Lysianthus. It's not going to wilt being out there at market in the middle of the day. Gumfrina is fun. We like to grow a lot of millets because they're like an accent grass that provide a different texture to your bouquet. Cosmos are fun, and you get so many cosmos off a small amount of plants. So there's just so many variations, but I hope those are some examples that help you out. It really depends on who your customer is going to be as to what varieties of flowers you should grow. So if you're selling to wedding florists, they want blush and white. If you're selling at a farmer's market, they want bright colors like yellow, orange, red, purple, stuff that I would not sell a lot of for my wedding customers. Okay, do I use any... I'm going to try to answer these quicker because I need to get off of here. Do you sell any of these chemicals do you use any chemicals for weed prevention? We have used pre-emergence in the past, so I don't really like to use that, but in some scenarios, they can help you out. You also have herbicides that will kill weeds, and we have used that as well. Another thing, I do not like spraying, and I do not ask my employees to spray anything. So if I choose to do that on my farm, I am the one that does it. And I don't like doing it at all for my health or for my soil health. So you have to make those decisions. There's pre-emergence that'll help prevent certain types of weeds. And you have to specifically look on, is the pre-emergent for grasses? Is the pre-emergent for broadleaf weeds? You have to pay attention and do your research on what it's going to actually prevent. And the same for herbicides. There's chemicals out there that only kill grass. So if you have a row of flowers and it's just inundated with grass, and you're like, I can't hand pull all of this, you can spray a chemical, and if it actually accidentally gets on your plants, it will not kill your flower, but it will kill the grass. So there's stuff like that. It's definitely something you can look into, but most flower farmers that I know are not spraying stuff like that out in their fields. And that's just their choice to be, a better steward of the land. So, okay. What are the most successful things that you fall sow? So we do a lot of direct seeding in the fall from Lisa's book, Cool Flowers. So here at the Gardener's Workshop Farm, you can go to their website and order an excellent book called Cool Flowers. And that book, it tells you, it's like an encyclopedia about planting cool flowers and which ones do great. And it even tells you like the hardiness zones for each flower. So you can look in the book and see if it grows great in your area. I love snapdragons. I love dianthus. I love bupleurum is like our number one filler plant that we grow for early spring. And those are all can be planted in the fall. So again, we're warm. We're in zone 8A, so we can grow a lot. Our ground really never freezes in winter. So like I can plant snapdragons any day of the week from October. Well, really any time of the season, of the whole year, I can plant snapdragons, but you understand what I'm saying. I can plant them all winter long. Let me see if I can think for a second. Stuff that I fall sow. Snapdragons, larkspur is a good one. Bachelor buttons are good. Dianthus, Orlea is the white lace flower. Amy is good. Dara is another one that we grow. So really, I'm just naming stuff that's out of the book Cool Flowers because that's what I go by to fall plant stuff on our farm. So you need to get a copy of that if you don't. I actually have 2 copies because one got really dirty and Lisa was selling one in her live shopping events on Fridays. And so I bought a second one that she personally hand signed, which was kind of cool too. I bought one of those from her live sales. All right. Okay, this is a question I may not have the answer for, but it's a cool scenario. I was cleaning up my larkspur bed. I was letting them go to seed, and then tarped it for a month to kill the weeds. But now there's tons of baby seedlings that are coming up out of the ground. So is it too early for larkspur? I would say probably it's a little early. It is neat seeing when like the fall stuff naturally starts to come up and grow. But from a farming perspective, what I have found happens a lot to when I allow stuff to regrow like that in my garden. I'll see, I haven't seen larkspur so much, but I've seen Amy grow back, bupleurum, bachelor buttons. They'll start growing like now or in September for me. And then what happens is the plant will get really big and we have a cold night that comes and just freezes the plant back and turns it black or whatever. And so my production's never really great on those plants that I allowed to grow really early versus the stuff that I start from seed and I plant really small in October out into the field. Those seem to handle the cold temperatures or the cold snaps that we have in winter a lot better, and I get a better production of those in the spring. So that's a great question. You can choose to let them bloom if you want. Larkspur needs to be thinned because they need their spacing to get a good solid stem and bloom in early spring. But I don't know, you can practice, but if you're asking for my advice, I would say clean up that row and start stuff from seed, and you're going to have the most success for that. Yeah, someone said they got a beach vibe. I'm at the beach this week. I'm down in Florida. I'm not on the farm. So taking a little break. I have found that is very important to take breaks, and this was just fun. So I decided was totally up for talking with y'all today, but after this, I'm probably going to go out to the beach and maybe drink a pina colada or something fun. All right. I think I've gotten through the questions. I'm going to answer two more. Okay, 2 more, and then I'm off of here. So, Glory Flower Farm, any recommendations for transplanting in the heat? Yes, I've killed so many transplants by throwing them out in the field. The number one, you are not going to want to plant them in black film or plastic if you can help it in the middle of summer. That will just toast your plants in a matter of hours. So we use a biodegradable film on top of our rows to help prevent weeds from coming up. And for summer specifically, we use a blue one. It's like, used to be a white version and now it's kind of blue. But that helps reflect the heat off of the soil, and we get a lot better transplant rate when we're planting into that. And also the second best thing is you need to be planting into soil that is wet. So like you have watered the soil deeply already, but never plant a transplant in the middle of summer into dry soil. And I've even found that it's still not enough. Even if you know you're going to water it in after you plant it, your plants will start to wilt before you even get to the end of your row. And so you want to make sure that you either have your irrigation running a couple days before you transplant into that, or go ahead and hand water the soil really deeply so that what you're planting into is already moist. And I have found that that helps a lot. Okay, and I had one more question. Let me scroll down. Okay, hello from Louisiana. From Pink Petal Co. What and when are you planting cool flowers to overwinter? So I've tried to go a little earlier in the past. I've tried to go a little bit later in the past, but my target date is October 15th. So our frost date at our farm is usually the first week of November. And I just find a lot of success with planting 3 to 4 weeks before my last frost date, because that's going to give the plants time to get established before our frost, start knocking the plants or slowing everything down. But also when I've tried to plant them too much earlier than that, it's still warm and the plants really grow big heading into winter and they don't handle the cold as well. And a lot of times we'll get a hard freeze and it'll just knock the plants back and they're not as healthy. When I plant stuff like in the middle of winter, which I actually do every year, but I do find those also don't do the best. It's like they never really start growing roots very deep before it gets cold. And so I feel like the ones that I plant in December and January are just kind of hanging out in the field. And it's beneficial to us because we're getting that task off of our list. So we're not having to plant everything all at one time. We can spread out. But I feel like the ones that have a couple weeks of warmer weather heading into winter are the ones that overwinter best and just perform best in the spring. So thanks for asking that question. That was a good one. And I hope I helped y'all out today. You can follow my farm again. I'm at Petal Pickers here on Instagram. We ship flowers nationwide. You can order those through our website. If you want to send a friend or a loved one some locally grown flowers or specialty cut flowers, we can help provide those. We ship to the lower 48 states, and we ship every Wednesday for delivery on Thursday. Again, I still feel like I'm new at growing flowers. I don't always feel like I know what I'm doing, but I've learned so much from the Gardener's Workshop Farm, all of her resources, and I highly recommend that y'all head over to the website, and if you haven't before, and check it out, and check out the online courses. It is so worth it to spend a little bit of money and invest in yourself for your business. It's not a great idea to make all the mistakes and waste all of your money up front, although we make mistakes every day. So anyways, take the courses. It'll really help you out. And I appreciate Lisa for asking me to be on, and maybe I'll see you in a few more weeks. So y'all have a good day. See ya. Bye.